I'm Shannon Martin. Tonight, Ontario's Premier makes a rare Sunday appearance facing tough questions about the province's overburdened healthcare system, especially surging cases of kids in ICUs.
Have shockingly few pediatric ICU beds. I mean, did no one see this coming?
Moving with the pediatric docs, family docs, getting them back in the office.
It comes as Ontario's top doctor is set to urge the public to mask up tomorrow, but reportedly won't bring back mask mandates. Meantime,
on pins and needles, we're walking on eggshells again, and we don't know if George is going to see this date yet.
Starting tomorrow, the Hospital for Sick Children will reduce surgery, saying it has no choice, leaving many families and kids waiting for surgeries in limbo. The countdown is on as Canada Soccer reveals the men's national team roster for the FIFA World Cup.
This is CBC Late Night News.
Thanks for joining us. It was a rare Sunday appearance from Ontario's Premier Doug Ford previewing tomorrow's fall economic statement, but he also faced a number of tough questions about the province's overburdened healthcare system, particularly children's ICUs overrun and overcapacity as cases of respiratory illness surge.
You are the person in charge right now. How do you explain that there are not enough pediatric beds today when you've known for months that this could be a really rough season without masks and with all the additional respiratory viruses in addition to COVID?
Well, thanks for the question, Cynthia. And we've been working not just months, for the last couple of years throughout the pandemic to build up the capacity. We're, again, pouring. It's not a money issue, folks. We're pouring billions and billions of dollars into the system. We have a great team of CEOs that are thinking outside the box to increase the capacity when it comes to pediatric beds.
The Premier also urging people to mask in public. We're going to take you through it all. Talia Ricci has more from Ford's announcement, starting with a pledge to help those struggling to fill their gas tank.
Everyone is concerned about the same thing, and that's how expensive life is getting for them.
Doug Ford said his government plans to extend the tax break that cut gas prices by 5.7 cents a litre. The Premier estimated it would save households an average of $195 over the 18-month period of the price reduction.
The fact is, people need a little bit of help. That's why this past summer we cut the gas tax by nearly 40%, saving Ontarians 10 cents per litre of gas. Tomorrow, we'll introduce legislation to extend the gas tax cut for another year.
The legislation is expected to be tabled on Monday alongside the province's fall economic statement. Recent findings from Ontario's financial watchdog suggest the province is in good financial shape.
This whole tax cut could be scooped up by oil and gas companies, and people would never see any benefit.
But the interim leader of the official opposition said the move will still leave Ontarians struggling financially.
If the Premier was serious, he'd be bringing in a strong rent control system to protect tenants who are dealing with soaring rents. He would be helping people who are struggling with their home heating bills because natural gas has gone up dramatically. He would be helping people on social assistance by doubling the rates.
Ford was also asked about pressures on the healthcare system. He said his government is working with hospital CEOs and health officials to come up with solutions, which also include hiring more nurses and doctors. Meanwhile, there are increasing calls for the province to implement a mask mandate.
I would be very supportive for universal masking at this point in time. And I know that a lot of my colleagues and myself would for sure support the decision going that way.
And you need to have that type of clear messaging, because the more ambivalent you are about the messaging, the more people are going to maintain the status quo.
Ford didn't answer questions Sunday about plans to mandate masks, but he recommended wearing one, getting updated on COVID-19 vaccines, and getting a flu shot. Ford says he plans to continue listening to the recommendations made by the province's Chief Medical Officer of Health. Dr. Kieran Moore is expected to recommend masking on Monday. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
As you heard Talia just say there, Ontario's top doctor giving a health update at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Now that comes at the same time as the Hospital for Sick Children reduces surgeries. The president and CEO said it had no choice. Talia Ashry spoke with one family who's already been waiting 2 years for surgery and now has no idea what happens next.
It's a parent's worst nightmare, seeing their child suffer and unable to do much.
You know, I haven't slept well in the last 48 hours.
This little guy is Stefanos' 3-year-old son, George Michelis. George was born on August 2019 with a birth defect called hypospadias. The opening of his urethra is located on the shaft of his penis rather than the tip. George has been waiting for over 2 years to have a surgery in January. He's one of nearly 700 children waiting for the procedure. But starting on Monday, Sick Kids is canceling surgeries since their pediatric ICUs are over capacity. George's dad, Stefanos, says he hasn't heard from the hospital.
A lot of friends and family have been calling to see if our son's surgery has been canceled. At this point, we don't know.
Fewer beds in the pediatric ICU and overrun children's hospitals across the province.
We have seen some attrition of healthcare workers over the last 2.5 years. And while in the pediatric healthcare sector it's less than the adult healthcare sector, it does have an impact.
And when the Premier was asked earlier today why a more ramped up response has not been taken, for his response,
we are moving with the pediatric docs, family docs, getting them back in the office more than what they've been in the past 2.5 years. We're throwing resources by hiring more nurses, and it comes to an HHR problem.
Earlier this month, the Associate Chief of Perioperative Services at Sick Kids told CBC while the hospital has 3 pediatric urology surgeons, only 1 regularly performs a surgery that kids like George need. Now, with word that Sick Kids is reducing surgeries, the Michelis family anxiously waits to hear what's next for their son.
We're on pins and needles. We're walking on eggshells again. And we don't know if George is going to see this date yet.
On Friday, Sick Kids said they'd be reaching out to families. We contacted the hospital to ask when, and they did not get back to us in time for broadcast. Talia Ashry, CBC News, Toronto.
The Premier also addressing the ongoing talks with QP education workers. When asked what he would do if the union gave another 5-day strike notice, Ford said this.
Well, hopefully they aren't going to. I can't answer hypothetical questions. Again, the media has asked me not to get into the weeds of this. And we're going to continue working with them to get a fair deal for the students, the parents, the workers, the educational support staff, and the employers as well. So let's all hope we get a deal, and we're going to work hard. We're going to stay at the table until we get one.
Yesterday, you saw thousands of education workers and supporters taking part in a province-wide rally. 55,000 workers walked off the job earlier this month after the province used back-to-work legislation and the notwithstanding clause to force a contract. The bill is expected to be officially repealed tomorrow. Well, turning to some other news now, one man is dead after a shooting in Scarborough. Police were called to Midland near Steeles before 7 last night. Officers found the victim, performed CPR, but he was pronounced dead on scene. No information tonight on his identity or any suspects. And in Toronto's downtown core, a standoff between police and 3 suspects shut down a major intersection for hours. Police were called to the area for a robbery at a pawn shop. It happened last night around 5 o'clock near Queen and Gladstone. Police closing down streets and calling in a negotiation team. Within a couple of hours, police were seen walking 3 people out in handcuffs. And Toronto police have arrested and charged 2 men after an investigation into a store selling magic mushrooms and other products. A 20-year-old from Hamilton and 23-year-old from Toronto are both facing several charges. They're due in court in January. Turning to some sports news now, the countdown is on for the World Cup. Tonight, we know who will be playing for Canada. The 26-man roster is officially set, ready for the country's first men's World Cup in almost 4 decades. Lisa Ching shows us why the hopes are so high.
An emotional Liam Fraser after the midfielder found out he'd made the team.
Alphonso Davies keeps it himself.
There was never a doubt star forward Alphonso Davies would, but he too marked the moment.
Alphonso Davies, are you kidding me?
A kid born in a refugee camp wasn't supposed to make it, he said, but here we are going to the World Cup. Davies and Fraser, 2 of 26 players chosen to represent Canada, the country's first finals appearance since 1986. An honor for their parents as well.
I mean, you can't be any prouder. It's been his dream. It's been what he's been working towards since he was 2, walking around with a soccer ball under his arm.
Coach John Herdman picked the team knowing it's up against some tough competition.
There's a love there that they really do care for each other, and that's going to be important for Canada. There's a challenge ahead of us that we're going to take on football giants, and we're going to need to believe in each other and trust each other, and that's where I went with my selection.
Good ball, touchdown!
Many players are from Brampton, Ontario, where Desmond Gardner has been coaching soccer for almost as long as Canada's World Cup drought. In fact, he once coached captain Atiba Hutchinson and is confident despite the team's challenges.
I first saw Atiba when he was 7 or 8 years old. He knew that he had, good athletic qualities and gifts, but his wasn't about him. It was about Sharon. It was about the team.
Now, excitement is building fast.
I'm excited and proud that I played some small part in this journey that the national team's had since '86.
We'll get his little jersey, and then in about 16 years, I'm excited to see him on the pitch for Canada.
People haven't recognized Canada's soccer prowess, but I think they're going to do it this year.
Their first chance is a game against European powerhouse Belgium. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Andrew Harris. They can feel it now.
And the Argos are heading to the Grey Cup after beating the Montreal Alouettes 34-27 in today's CFL East Division final at BMO Field. The Argos face 2-time defending champs, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. The big game goes next Sunday in Regina for the 109th Grey Cup. Sophia, I just got to say, if people don't follow you on social, they have to do it now. She posted a hilarious video making fun of herself, talking about the
Say it ain't snow.
Yes.
That's what I said. Many, many more times than I want to count. I have said the cheesy first snowfall line.
It's fitting.
Well, thank you. Thank you for boosting my view count by 1 there. I got to say, though, folks, there is something so magical about that first snowfall. And no matter where you are, whether you were here in the newsroom like we were, I bet it was the top conversation for many of you around your neighborhood. The fact that we finally got snow in Ontario this weekend, and snow and then some for many north and west of the city, where upwards of 25 centimeters is still adding up. It was because of these 2 big bands of lake effect squalls, Shannon, that built up around the Huron and the Georgian shores. This is a long duration snow squall event, and the flakes were flying as far south as Hamilton and Niagara. They didn't really stick on the ground, but for some of you in the usual snow belt suspect regions, you still have another 10 to 15 centimeters still to come in the next 24 hours. That includes a really nice first base for any of the ski hills around Barrie and Collingwood that could see upwards of 30 centimeters maybe by the time this is all said and done by Monday afternoon. So I'm telling you this because if you're heading out on the roads, Highway 21, Highway 400, and especially that 400 stretch between Newmarket and Barrie, it is going to be quite dicey for your Monday morning commute. Coming up, we'll talk about more notable facts, how we reached our first frost, and it's going to be chilly on Monday.
Frost, snow, here we go.
Yeah, all of the fun stuff.
Thanks, Sophia. 20 undocumented leaders from across Ontario are on their way to Ottawa, joining dozens more undocumented people from across the country. They're demanding status for all. We spoke to them in Toronto before they left.
This is a historic journey. These are people who have been excluded from basic rights, who've been unable to get their basic rights at work, at school, and they're going to the Minister of Immigration with questions. They're asking them, will I be safe at work? Will I be safe at school? Will I be safe with my family?
Earlier this year, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau promising a regularization program for undocumented workers and to expand pathways to permanent residence for international students and temporary foreign workers. The cabinet is set to receive a proposal sometime this year. The UN Climate Change Conference is wrapping up its first full week in Egypt. Delegates are trying to hammer out concrete action to battle climate change. We'll take you there next. To the UN Climate Change Conference now, where there are increasing questions about how much concrete action can actually come from COP27, especially from developing countries where climate change has hit hard. International climate correspondent Susan Ormiston has more.
We are the global south. We demand climate justice.
The clock is ticking down on COP27.
We demand climate justice.
But so far, too few signs of progress.
We are losing time. We have exceeded the tipping point.
Do you think it's harder to get your message through because of Ukraine, the war, the inflation, the energy prices?
It is, but the climate crisis is equally urgent. Trillions and trillions of dollars have been poured into Ukraine. Why is it difficult to put money for people who are dying more than the Ukrainians in the Horn of Africa?
At Egypt's UN Climate Conference, delegates and observers from 200 countries face the looming legacy of this COP, including whether to compensate countries vulnerable to extreme climate.
There are over 33,000 people here from more than 3,400 states or organizations. It's massive, part climate fair and part science conference. And this is the critical second week to come up with action plans and stick countries to them.
Ambitions now risk failure without stronger political will.
There are climate vulnerable nations that depend on progressive voices like Canada to tell the world that they're listening, that they are willing to take a political step.
This weekend, a break from the push and pull of policy. Overlooking the Red Sea, different pathways. A kind of culture COP, meditating on the planet's future.
It's so unbelievably important that we gather frontline voices, Indigenous voices, creatives, artists, have a space for music and well-being and create the change that we so desperately need in the world.
Believing where politics might disappoint, the spirit for change won't. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt.
To mark the conference here in Toronto today, people of different faiths gathered to hold a vigil representing their hopes for global leaders to address the climate crisis.
That the climate changing is an emergency, it's at crisis levels, but also that all people don't experience the climate crisis in the same way.
Organizers say vigils like this one were held at 10 different locations across Canada. The demonstration included a procession with song, poems, and prayer. People of all faiths were welcome to participate. Stay with us, we're heading into a short break, but Sophia is back with all the talk of snow. In Regent Park today, a celebration of Filipino arts and culture with live music, performances, and food. It's the second annual event of its kind to ring in the holiday season. For some, though, it's more than just a market. It's a chance to connect with community and reclaim culture.
This Winter Arts Festival is in its second year running, and similarly to Cultura, we have live performances, visual art, dance and music, and lots of food. What we wanted to do is just connect people through art. We wanted to engage the greater community, make people feel inspired, make people find their sense of belonging through what they experience here.
I felt inspired to be around so many other Filipino artists, and they asked for something original, and I wanted to really, it's also like a Christmas festival, so really kind of play on that idea of like being giving. I feel like a lot of my work is sometimes outside of my own community, so it's nice to be back and to feel that kind of love by everyone. We don't get recognized sometimes in the outside community or like in the grander scheme of the world, so it's nice that we're able to show love to one another and to gather all in one place, and I think, I don't know, it just feels like a giant celebration.
As a Filipino-Canadian, all of our experiences are varied. My experience here has been one where my parents had to assimilate, and so I didn't learn the language, and it's only now in my 40s that I'm starting to learn the language and really understand the history and the pre-colonial history of our traditions. And so I think Pasko sa Kultura here, as well as meeting the other artists, there is a generation where we're actually pushing to reclaim our cultures, and I think that's a beautiful thing, a very powerful thing to do.
It's beginning to look a lot like, you know, Christmas. One of our videographers, Mark, having some fun this evening for us at the Canadian Tire Christmas Trail. It's a 1.5-kilometer journey. There's thousands of twinkling lights, interactive displays, and some special appearances by some familiar faces. I think Mark may have gotten his photo with Santa too tonight. He had a good time.
I hope so. I'm already singing all the Christmas carols.
That's right. Well, it is the season and the snow is here.
Yeah, and it certainly looks very Christmassy out there. I kind of wish I had put the lights up last weekend when it was 20 degrees, though, and not this coming weekend where it will hopefully feel above the freezing mark. We talked a little bit earlier about the snow that's coming down north and west of the city. Snow squall advisories and weather advisories are still out because of the risk of blowing snow, but we haven't talked too much about the cold. It is the other notable thing for me to share with you. We have blown the record of the last frost out of the water. We have been fashionably late, but we have now arrived to the party. We are here. We have reached our first frost of the season, very late. We are already at -1 right now for current conditions. In the morning, it will feel like -7. -3 will be the core temperature. It's a cold wait at the bus stop for many, and this modified Arctic air, folks, is here with us for, unfortunately, the long haul. Our daytime high will not be above seasonal for the long range forecast for the next 2 weeks, it looks like. Daytime high will even be around the freezing mark for a few days, and this comes after a week when we were record-breakingly warm. And then look at the icons. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. This is lake effect snow, and snow that might actually stick around the ground for some of us around the GTA. We have a setup coming up midweek starting Tuesday that will actually see squall set up with an east wind picking up from the warmer lake waters and the colder on-land air that could see snow for anywhere from Burlington to Mississauga and Etobicoke and Scarborough for the next couple days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe even Friday. It just brings so much good news, Shannon.
It's true. You know, I think I like to be tough and hold off on the winter jacket, but
yeah,
it might be
it's
time.
Here. And I like snow right now, though, just not come January.
That's so true. Well, thank you so much, Sophia. That is our show for you tonight. We're going to say goodbye so you can have a look at some more of these wonderful photos from the Christmas trail. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next weekend.